We are back for a third season of You Like That Feels Great, baby. You haven't gotten rid of us yet, folks. Coming up, 5 preview pods, 2 divisions each week, plus the season predictions pod with a few special guests coming up as we get towards late August, early September. We'll try to pump these out one a week. We're going to start today as we hurtle towards week 1 of the 2024 season with the AFC South and the NFC South. We usually start with them, probably the least prestigious divisions, and we'll work our way up. So we're going to do the Easts next week, which, you know, that's the number one media market, AFC and NFC East. Then we're going to do the AFC North and AFC West so that we can save our 2 divisions with the Vikings and Niners for the final preview before we bring everybody in, including some guests from recent seasons for our season preview, where everybody makes their picks for standings for each of the divisions and Super Bowl champion, MVP, all that stuff. That'll come towards the end of the month. But Joey, we are back. It's been a long off season. Haven't seen you since the draft. How has your off season been? Are you ready to get 2024 started, or are you just hoping to get some sleep?
Both. I really actually can't believe it's here. I can't believe it's training camp. I can't believe there's actually a game tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's it's the least mattering game of all time, but I mean, usually when the season's over, like, you're just like, oh my God, how many more months till football or whatever? And you're just like, wow, that's a long time. And then now it's like, holy crap, we're here. And still got another month till it really counts, but you can sniff the grass. You know, you can sniff the wind of the football just zipping through the air. It's coming.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the start of training camp, you never really get great news. Yes, you can get some, oh, this guy's impressed, or this guy's in the best shape of his life.
Oh,
for the most part,
it is best shape of your life season.
Yeah, but for the most part, all you hear is injury news, and obviously we'll get to that later. We'll do some Vikings and Niners takes at the end of the pod because I want to keep, you know, the format straight where we're previewing teams here. You know, we don't want to necessarily just be Vikings Niners. We'll hit that at the end. Obviously, the Vikings have been hit by a lot of injuries recently, so we got to cover that. But yeah, this time of year, man, it's like spring training in baseball. The only thing you ever hear other than he's in the best shape of his life is Tommy John surgery, out for the year. Or in football's case, it's like he tore his ACL on the first snap of mini camp. You're like, oh, great. You know, that's completely ruined, you know, one side of the ball for the entire season. So we're treading lightly as we enter into the NFL season. We're just hoping that we can get to, you know, September 8th without any major injuries on any of the teams that aren't vying with the Vikings and Niners for a playoff spot. Let's start with the AFC South. Let's just get straight into it. Last year, we really leaned into D'Amico Ryans from the get-go. I listened to a few minutes of our preview pod of the South's last season, and man, were we high on D'Amico. I mean, both of us, I think, had them going 7-10. I had them 7-10, and you had 8-9. So we didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, but their season win total last year was 3.5, and they went 10-7 and won the division. We were much higher than market on them. This year, with the way C.J. Stroud played, with the way D'Amico Ryans coached, they are a bona fide Super Bowl contender. Their over-under is set at 10, 6.5 wins higher than last year. That's what a good quarterback will do for you. Over-under set at 10, minus 200 to make the playoffs, and only 13-1 to win the Super Bowl. Pretty crazy stuff from a team that was supposedly in year 1 of a rebuild this year, and last year was just kind of the bottoming out year. Unbelievable situation there in Houston. I want to hear your take. What do you have for their projected record, and what do you expect for Houston as the encore from last year's amazing season?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go Super Bowl or bust, but you could not be higher on the Houston Texans right now. They have everything, just like that. It feels like it kind of happened overnight, but not only do they have head coach, quarterback in place, but I mean, now look at their offense. They added Diggs and Joe Mixon, and, you know, conceivably got better on defense with defensive line. I think they got your guy, Daniel Hunter. He came too.
Guaranteed double-digit sacks from him.
Yeah, I mean, they play in what I think is a crap division
Mm.
overall. I mean, they'll go at least 4-2, I think, in the division. Yeah, I think they go 12-5. I don't think they go anything higher. 12-5. I think they're that good. I don't think isn't CJ Stroud the highest most like bet MVP pick this year? I mean, it's kind of the way it works. Like your second season, I think Mahomes did it. Like your second season when you really like.
Yep. Even guys like Carson Wentz in his second season, he was the MVP favorite through like week 14. It's like the MVP voters love to vote for a second-year quarterback for whatever reason.
Yeah, there's some sort of like narrative or just like kind of like you already are making your case. It's almost like a public, I don't want to say public, but you still got to put up the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But like, oh, like, is it Mahomes fatigue? Like we gave it to so-and-so, like, last year, they're like, we're going to try and find a non-quarterback. They're like, nah, we're just going to give it to Lamar. Like, and I feel like CJ Stroud's got like if he has a good year, Texans win the division. Like, it's going to be hard to just not vote for CJ Stroud. But
with how quickly he turned the franchise around, I mean, we love DeMeco Ryans and we've given him all the credit in the world. But if they draft Bryce Young instead, this shit ain't happening. So, yeah, I mean, I thought it like just how quickly like they showed. I don't know if you saw. We're not talking about them, but there was some clip I saw of Deshaun Watson just missing his target in practice, like horribly. Yeah,
like he was standing still. There's no. It was like a drill. There was a guy standing with his arms in the air. Like a coach, he wasn't throwing like to a player. So he was standing still, and then there was like one of those like net where you got like the square.
Yeah,
he hit neither the square in the net or the person. Like he hit it right in the middle, and I just thought, not like, what a terrible throw, but just like look at I mean, it's shocking. Cleveland's still a pretty good team, but like Houston, I mean, you thought like, oh, he just like I quit. Everyone here's racist. Then he has a whole scandal with however many times he's getting touched by women in Houston, whatever. And then Houston's like, no, we're good. Figured out. Like, I feel like their peak with CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans is way higher than it ever was.
Way higher. Yeah.
With Deshaun and, I mean, I forget, what do you have? Wade
Bill
Phillips?
O'Brien.
Oh, yeah, Bill O'Brien. Oh, Wade Phillips. I mean, if they were playing in a conference without Kansas City, I'd probably send them to the Super Bowl.
So you got them at 12-5 off the strength of head coach, quarterback, defense. They added some pieces. I have them at 10-7. They do have a tough schedule. As I go through the schedule, I'm like, okay, a lot of tough spots there. I think they play 3 in a row on the road. Just to recap 2023, they were 13th on offense, 11th on defense. They're bringing Bobby Slowick back. He did get head coaching interviews, but that's a guy who's going to be a head coach sooner rather than later. But he's back for year 2 under DeMeco Ryans. Like you said, they added Diggs and Mixon. The running game is still a little suspect, but I mean, when you got Collins, Dell, Wood, and Schultz as your 3rd through 7th option on offense, I mean, that is pretty freaking good. So, DeMeco's fingerprints are all over the defense. We've seen basically for the last 3 years, that guy is not only a master motivator, but like he knows his X's and O's on defense much better than your guy Steve Wilkes did last year. Like the Niners were humming under DeMeco, and I think this defense will improve. The only reason I have them at 10-7, I still have them winning the division. I have them as the 3 seed. It's just, that schedule is just really brutal. So if Danielle Hunter stays healthy, by the way, having been a fan of his for almost a decade now, like that guy will wreck games, and he's probably not going to have to be their number 1, given that they have the number 1 overall pick from last year, or the number 2 overall pick from last year, running off of the edge. So, I mean, it's like, yes, Super Bowl or bust, but, I think 10-7 is realistic. And I think, I mean, obviously, as long as he's still under a rookie contract, CJ Stroud's going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl now that he's got the right head coach. So 10-7 for me, for Houston, and 12-5 for Joey, just for record keeping. Next, we're going to go Jacksonville. And this one is one that we sniffed it out last year. They did end up missing the playoffs. We didn't pick them to miss the playoffs, but I had them at 8-9 and winning the division with 8-9. They ended up going 9-8, and they missed the playoffs off of that horrendous end to their season after I believe they started 7-2 and then just completely collapsed at the end. Last year, they were 13th on offense, 17th on defense. They bring back Trevor Lawrence on a massive contract, $55 million a year. We'll obviously get to that later. They added Brian Thomas in the first round, signed Gabe Davis to a contract. On defense, they added Eric Armstead, who I feel like you never really liked all that much, especially for how much he makes. And then Savage, Darby, underwhelming adds to a defense that was 17th last year. I am stock way down on Jacksonville this year. I have them going 8-9. I think they could probably bottom out and be significantly worse than that. Anybody who thinks this team is a Super Bowl contender because they have Trevor Lawrence, I just do not see it. And Joey, I would imagine you don't see it either.
No. We can get into Trevor later, but yeah, I have them going 8-9 also. I could see them going 5-12. I could see them even going 10. I mean, because I do think they have some talent. I mean, part of me even does think like, Trevor's going to figure it out a bit here. But no, they're just stuck in I don't want to even say mediocrity because they have their highs and at some point, last year, like I remember the Niners played in Jacksonville, or maybe it was 2 seasons ago, and it was like, here's a big game in Jacksonville. It was just like Jaguars got just reamed at home. And I chalked it up to Urban Meyer a couple years ago, but it's been a bit, and I'm like, yeah, we're not like having Tim Tebow show up at training camp, but we're also not competing for a Super Bowl. And they probably thought they would be with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, they were 8-3 last year. I was just fumbling through my Athlon guide to get to their schedule. They were 8-3, and then they lost to Cincy, Cleveland, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, barely squeaked by Carolina, and then lost at Tennessee. Like, the writing is on the wall that the team was just sputtering to the finish last year. They responded to that by paying a guy that we think is probably the 15th or 18th best quarterback in the league, like he's one of the 3 best. And I mean, Doug Peterson, since the Super Bowl win, really has not been special as a head coach. Like, that win against the Chargers in the wild card round is probably the only massive achievement for the Jags.
Yeah, it's more of a Chargers episode.
So, I don't really get it. They're stuck in the middle there. There's no way they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're probably not going to tank to the point of 4-13, but I wouldn't write that off. I just think, I looked at their draft, I looked at their signings. It's like, okay, Brian Thomas at wide receiver, Gabe Davis at wide receiver, Christian Kirk at wide receiver. Not bad. Offensive line last year was ranked somewhere in the teens. Trayvon Walker has not been, good enough to be the number 1 overall pick. Armstead, he was always, the 2nd or 3rd best defensive lineman on the Niners. I can't
believe he got the contract the Jaguars gave him. The Niners, you very rarely see it, but the Niners, like, we're going to ask you to take, like, a big pay cut, like 50%, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was like $8 million or something, $8 or $9 million from, like, 17. And Armstead was like, rightfully, screw you, no. Don't ask me to take a pay cut at work, so I don't blame him for doing that. And the Niners were like, all right, dude, hit the market. And he got his $17 million for 3 years. I don't know exactly the guarantees and stuff, but wow, he's finished every year, I think, with like major knee and foot problems, like plantar fasciitis. Like, the Niners basically just said, we don't think you can finish the season anymore. And but hey, good for him.
Yeah, he's 6'7". The dude, he clogs up space, but he's never been as disruptive as you would expect for a guy who makes that kind of money. No matter what I look at on the Jaguars, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, quarterback, head coach, I just see mid 8-9. You said 8-9 as well. I think we're a consensus there. They're over under set at 9. At some places it's 9.5. We're going to look at that for a pick of the week here in a little bit. 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. Who in their right mind is betting that right now? Let's move on to Indianapolis. They're over under set at 8.5. They're plus 150 to make the playoffs, 50-1 to make the Super Bowl. I have them going 9-8. this is partly because you're so high on Anthony Richardson, and I kind of was in the limited time that he had last year. The dude just has the tools, and Shane Steichen clearly like knows how to coach offense. They finished 10th in scoring offense last year, despite starting, Gardner Minshew and I mean, really not having much of a running game. Jonathan Taylor was not up to his usual, production. Obviously, Pittman's a good wide receiver, but it's not like they're throwing out, massive targets everywhere on offense last year. Obviously, their defense was a sieve, and that's why they were not good. But I mean, looking at the Colts, stock arrow up 9-8. What do you think?
I have them going 7-10.
Okay.
I'm not a huge Colts guy right now, but I love Anthony Richardson. I think again, if he could put it, again, so many guys you could say this. If he puts it together, look out. It concerns me that a guy that big and that athletic gets hurt that much.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
Every time he ran the ball last year, it was like, oh God.
They no longer have Gardner Minshew. And if he gets hurt, I believe it's Joe Flacco.
It is Joe Flacco.
And I'm not going to count on last year happening again with this team because I think the Browns are much more talented than the Colts. But yeah,
just really quickly, they got Pittman and Downs, who were great last year. They added Adonai Mitchell, the speedster, to be their third wide receiver, and then they picked the very first defensive player in the draft in Latu. Yeah. So I mean, last year they were 28th on defense, 10th on offense. They really need to improve that defense to have a chance. So I would assume that you're mostly down because defense and questioning whether Richardson can stay healthy.
Yeah, probably. I'm also not. I mean, Michael Pittman as your number one really doesn't probably scare many teams. He's a good receiver, solid. Doesn't really do much in for me. But yeah, I don't think Anthony Richardson's going to stay healthy. And I think Joe Flacco, Father Time might be here.
Hey, he's a second-year quarterback. He could be the MVP. Watch out. There are crazier bets.
If he plays, like I think he's either going to be like, wow, often injured again, or like, holy shit, what are we looking at? Like,
he's either going to be Josh Allen or he's going to be fucking Mitch Trubisky. There's like nothing in between.
Yeah, I mean, can't really.
When you have that skill set and that size, especially, it's like, can you get to the ceiling? And I mean, what did he play? 4 games last year, and I believe in 2 of them he got knocked out with a concussion while he was running, and we were like, man, like those were just 2 regular NFL hits, and you're like, man, this is worrying. So yeah. I hope he stays healthy because I want to see what he is. I mean, you were as high on him as anybody in last year's draft. He's clearly.
I don't remember if I did say it, but yeah, I think I said I would have taken him number 1.
Yeah, well, you and I correctly did not like Bryce Young from the beginning, but I didn't like CJ Stroud either, and I could not have been more wrong.
On him. Big, gigantic, Titanic whiff. I was like, oh, Ohio State quarterback, we've seen this before. His receivers in college are better than the ones in the NFL. Well, here's where Joey was wrong.
But we got to see on Anthony Richardson because obviously the talent is there. So I have 9 and 8.
I think Anthony Richardson's talent, he has like 3 floors. He's got like 4, like on a hotel. He's got like floor 1, floor 3, floor 6, and then he's got like floor 32 penthouse, which is like, boy, if he hits that,
yeah,
look out.
Yeah, I have him at 9 and 8, mostly off of Steichen's a good offensive coach, and if he can get the most out of Richardson's talent, they can hit the ceiling and maybe contend for the playoffs. Joey has him at 7 and 10, and then we get to the cellar dwellers, the Tennessee Titans. Over under set at 6.5. 4-1 to make the playoffs, 150-1 to win the Super Bowl. This is not going to be a good season for the Tennessee Titans. They're moving on from Mike Vrabel. It's Callahan at head coach. It's Will Levis at quarterback. I do think that there is some optimism there and that they really did blow it all up. It's wholesale changes. New offensive coordinator, Ridley, Boyd, Pollard, Cushenberry at center. Left tackle is going to be Latham, who they drafted in the top 10. new head coach and offensive coordinator with a young quarterback, that worries you a little bit, but like they did need to clean house. Their offense was awful last year, 28th in scoring offense. Like they had to blow this thing up, and they did. We'll see if Callahan is the guy to lead them back to the playoffs. This is too soon. Their defense was surprisingly good last year, but yes, they add Awuzie and Snead, so their secondary is actually going to be pretty damn good for a rebuilding team. But man, their schedule, especially at the beginning of the season, they're going to start off like 1-7. And yes, the second half schedule is much, much easier, but it's going to be slow going for Tennessee. I have them at 5-12. What do you have?
I have them going 6-11 again. I think they're probably pretty clearly the worst team in the division, but I don't think they're like a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
I really
they didn't spend like a bad team.
No, I really like. I think Calvin Ridley is going to help a ton. I think Snead from the Chiefs is even better than people think he is. And
you're betting on Calvin Ridley?
Yeah,
I'd bet on him.
He would too.
He would.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean the schedule at the beginning, it's tough, but I don't know. I think Will Levis is the type of guy who have a game or two where he just like it all clicks. Then he'll have some games where it's awful.
Listen to this start for Tennessee: at Chicago, then the Jets, Green Bay, at Miami, bye week. You don't want an early bye with like a young team like that. Then Indy at home, at Buffalo, at Detroit, and then it gets a little easier. New England, at Chargers, Vikings. It's going to be a brutal start.
I don't know. Like, are we sure the Bears are going to beat them?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like when we get to the NFC North, I am fading the Bears big time. That game is going to be so much hype for the Bears.
Like, I don't know. Are we sure the Jets are going to beat them?
Are we sure the Packers are going to beat them?
I am sure about that. But
no, I'm 5-12 because I have them starting in Tennessee.
The Jets won specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, the Jets are coming from the Bay Area Monday night.
Mm-hmm. It's the home opener for Tennessee. What if they start off 2-0? That division is there for the taking.
Then they probably lose Packers, Dolphins, division of the Colts. I mean, who knows? They're losing to Buffalo. They're losing to Detroit. I mean, they should.
That's that stretch at the end though. Washington, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Indy, Jacksonville, Houston. Like, it's not too bad at the end. So maybe they get to 6 or 7 wins, but I have them at 5-12. A lot of guys they added on defense. So Robinson, Chason, Clowney, Jewell, Wanham, Fuller. Wanham was a guy who, for the Vikings for years, I thought was a really good third defensive end. Like, obviously when we had Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin and these guys coming off the edge with double-digit sacks, Wanham never really got to play all that much. But when he did, he caused a lot of pressure. Like, they made some good signings, especially on defense. It's just, I don't know. It is a weak division, so I think anything can happen. I don't disagree with your 6-11. I just think that start is just so brutal. So we'll see if Tennessee can get out of their own way. So just to recap the AFC South, let's double check our numbers here because this is what we're going to record keep at the end of the year, see who did better. Joey, Houston, 12-5, division champs. Jacksonville, 8-9, Indy, 7-10, and Tennessee, 6-11. I have Houston as the division champs as well, 10-7. Then the Jags, or actually Indianapolis, 9-8, and then the Jags, 8-9, and Tennessee, 5-12. Let's move on to the NFC South, and we got to start with the prohibitive favorites. Kirk Cousins' new home down there in Atlanta. Looks like he's going to be ready to go to start the season. So all of that panic about, oh my God, are they going to have to start Penix week 1? What if Cousins never actually gets to play? It looks like he is going to be there week 1. I have them going 11-6 because they're playing a very weak schedule. I think they are in my opinion, by far the worst division in the NFL. I think it all lines up for them. I think Raheem Morris has shown in recent years that he is ready to be an NFL head coach again. Last year, they were 26th on offense, 18th on defense. Obviously, they had Cousins, Penix, Mooney, your boy Dwelly, and Ray McLeod from the Niners. Rondale Moore, I think, is a pretty decent pickup there. Can they get elite production from Pitts? Who knows? Bijan Robinson's obviously really good. Drake London's really good. Algier is an amazing second running back. Like, it's all there for the taking, but the defense is sus. So I have them at 11-6, mostly off of the lack of strength in the division. Joey, what do you have Atlanta at?
I went back and forth because I am not ready to crown Atlanta right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I mean, Cousins is coming off a major injury. I also, part of me does think the thing with him and Penix could be a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
With how that was kind of handled. And I'm also just on top of it. I'm probably higher on Tampa than most people, but I have them going 10-7.
Okay, that's definitely respectable. Forgot to set their over-under. Their over-under set at 9.5. They're minus 320 to make the playoffs, 28-1 to win the Super Bowl. Just to put that into perspective, Jacksonville is 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. Atlanta's 28-1 to win the Super Bowl. So by that metric, they're like, oh, Jacksonville's better than Atlanta. But Atlanta's minus 320 to make the playoffs, while Jacksonville is minus 105. So that's showing me that the odds makers really think the NFC is weaker as a whole, and that the NFC South is extremely weak. So that's, I think, pretty much the whole reason I have them at 11-6 is the offense, the weak division. The defense is basically unchanged from last year when they were like 18th, 20th against the run. I mean, I don't think the defense is good enough to win a playoff game. I just think in that division, there's enough games for them. I think they finished third last year, so they're playing a third place schedule. Really good opportunity for Atlanta to win the division here in Cousins' first season. Let's go to Tampa Bay. I'll let you lead this one off. Big season coming up for Mayfield now that he's getting paid. Last year was the prove it year. This year is the, hey, prove that you were worth it year. What do you see for Tampa?
I really like Tampa. I think they were above and beyond, obviously their expectations last year. I think they improved their offensive line. I really like the guy they took in the first round, the center from Duke. I have them also going 10-7. I don't think I really ever counted like the actual tiebreakers, but like we'll give it to Tampa. I guess I'll say Tampa wins the division. I do. I mean, maybe the difference is like Tampa's playing a first place schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tampa will have to play like Dallas, the Niners, and
Detroit,
and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So you know what? I might have just talked myself out of it, but nope, we're sticking to it. They're going to go into Kansas City and win. That's going to happen.
Okay. I'll write that down.
So yeah, then let me go back. Who does Atlanta play?
Yeah, Atlanta will play the third place schedule. So
they're all playing Dallas.
So then they'd play the Vikings, and they would play what's third place in the West? The Seahawks.
Kirk goes back to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're playing Seattle.
And then third place would be what, Denver? Or no, Vegas instead of KC. Yeah.
Oh shoot.
I mean, look at that schedule, that Atlanta schedule, man. I mean, they just.
Yeah, I'm looking at now. Yeah, that's. I mean, shoot. They finished with like ignoring the Chargers, because I think the Chargers are obviously talented and should get a Harbaugh bump, but they finished with at New Orleans, at Denver, the Chargers, and at Minnesota, at Raiders, at home against the Giants, at Washington, and then the Panthers.
Cakewalk.
They start with Pittsburgh too, and then they go at Philly. But like, what is Philly? What is it? I have no clue.
Some of these games on their schedule that could possibly be difficult may not even be that difficult. I mean, Seattle, don't know what to expect from them. At Denver, definitely down. Chargers, they get them at home.
So what you're saying is Atlanta might go 16 and 1.
I got them at 10-7 or at 11-6, and you got them at 10-7. But the more you look at that schedule, the more you think, hey, this road will be tough for Tampa.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick look at Tampa. So 20th on offense last year, 7th on defense. That was really surprising when I was going through the stats. 7th in scoring, 7th in total defense. Really impressive from Bowles, who was a guy that when he came in for Arians in 2022, I think a lot of people were like, yeah, was never that good with the Jets. He's actually proven to be a pretty good coach there. They added lightly to that defense, but they really didn't need to add much. They were so good last year. They added Gregory, Hall, Whitehead, probably Levante David's final season, going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like you said, Barton, the center in the first round on offense. Evans and Baldwin getting a little, Godwin, excuse me, getting a little old. I have them going 8-9 just because it's a tough schedule, and I think a lot of their best players are aging. Obviously, the infrastructure there with them winning 3 straight divisions, one of the rare teams in the NFL to win the division 3 years in a row. It's hard to bet against them, but I have 8-9 just because of the difficulty of the schedule. So, I think they'll drop off a little bit, not titanically.
That would be it. If Tampa, if they do win it, like I'm predicting, which means they won't.
You picked Carolina last year.
Yeah, that'd be 4 in a row. That'd be like the sneakiest 4-year division title stretch.
And the year before that streak started, they won the Super Bowl as a wild card. It's like, that's a pretty good franchise all of a sudden.
That's right. Because they didn't win it the year.
Pretty wild for a team that just sucked ass in between 2003 and 2019.
It's so random.
You get Tom Brady in the building, and all of a sudden you become the Patriots. Like, really unbelievable. Let's move on to New Orleans. This is one I've been waiting to talk about all offseason long. Over-under set at 8.5, plus 190 to make the playoffs, 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. Let's just go over them statistically, and then I'll give you some takes. 9th in scoring offense last year, 8th in scoring defense. I was really surprised to see that. Yeah, they finished 9 and 8.
Top 10 and
both in the top 10, missed the playoffs. Very strange. Statistically, they were quite good. You look into the numbers a little bit deeper. They were number 1 in the league in turnover differential with plus 12. So obviously that's going to regress to the mean a little bit this year.
Yeah. Is that right? They were number 1 in the league?
New Orleans was. Yeah.
Math ain't mathing.
They're trending way down, in my opinion. I just, when you see that number, when you see that they were number 1 in the league in turnover luck, you have to go, okay, say they go from number 1 to number 16 and just regress to the mean. That's a lot of points off the board. Look at that offense. Carr, Kamara, Williams, Ramczyk. Is Michael Thomas still there? Who knows?
That might be on the roster.
That's an old team on offense. And then you look at the defense.
The greatest receiver. Well, no, I don't want to say greatest because I felt like it was just a couple of slants, A little bit that one year where he broke the reception record.
Mm-hmm.
And then ever since then, it's just been like, are you alive?
What was that? It was like 145 catches or something. And you're like, this is the best player in fantasy football. This is one of the 5 best players in the NFL. And it's been like 5 straight seasons of he played 2 games and then tore his Achilles. It's like, damn, feel bad for that dude. But I mean, looking at that team, you got Willie Gay and Demario Davis and Cam Jordan that lead the defense. Tyrann Mathieu in his 11th season. All these guys are old. And if there's one thing I love to do, it's fade a team that's getting old and had good turnover luck the year prior. All of that to say, and before I throw it to you, I just want to make this point. This team mutinied their head coach in this week 18 last year. They have no respect for Dennis Allen. They didn't listen to his play calls in order for a player to get a performance bonus in the final game of the year. We just going to forget that? Like, this team has all the stock arrows down I could possibly imagine. I have them at 6-11. They're over under set at 8.5. Stock arrow way down for me on New Orleans. What about you?
Yeah, I also have them going 6-11. Derek Carr might be cooked. Just his play and maybe just feel like he took a beating last year. Yeah, I mean, I forget what we predicted last year, but like they were supposed to be a lot better, which the numbers say they were.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which kind of
It's
what
wild.
you're saying is just like something's up, doesn't pass the sniff test. Yeah, for whatever reason, I'm not super locked into the Saints. I'm not super, following them, but it feels like there's stuff bubbling under the surface with, I don't know, trade. Didn't Kamara say he wants a new deal?
Mm-hmm.
Which some teams have quite a bit of those problems, but
the
yeah,
vibes there are bad.
I'm trying to find like a more like how do like a button down way to say it, but like vibes off, way off. Vibes way off in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll be playing in New Orleans in February.
No, I don't think so. Like, let's take a look at their schedule. Okay, so they start with Carolina, win. At Dallas, Philly, at Atlanta, at Kansas City, Tampa Bay. And then, towards the end of the year.
I mean, that could be 1-5.
Yeah. At Green Bay, Raiders, and then at Tampa to end the season. The more I look at the schedule, I mean, Dennis Allen's career record as a coach is 24-46, and they quit on him and freaking mutinied him last year in Week 18. Not only did they not fire Dennis Allen, which if you lose the locker room to the point where you send a play call in and they completely ignore it and go rogue, and then you don't fire him, you bring him back, and you also don't make any changes to the team or the coaching staff, this is the all-time under 8.5. That's going to be a pick of the week without a doubt. And then we get to the Carolina Panthers, Joey's favorite choice last year for Jack and the Bum of the Week. I think they got 3 different wins last year out of the 18 regular season podcasts. So hopefully Carolina can be better than that. Last year, they were a dismal 32nd on offense and a wonderful 29th on defense.
Their offensive coordinator got hired.
Absolutely unbelievable. They're over under this year.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm totally spacing. They hired the offensive coordinator from Tampa. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, Dave Canales. Yeah.
I was like, no, total brain fart. My bad.
Because they were so awful last year, they fired Frank Reich. I can't even believe he was the coach. He was only there for 11 games. They did bring back Ejiro Evero to be the defensive coordinator, and I do think they spent huge on defense, which you have to when you're paying a rookie quarterback next to nothing. Your roster really doesn't have much talent, and you have a lot of cap space. You got to spend it on something. They spent huge at all 3 levels. They got Robinson, Chason, Clowney, Jewell. Like I was saying, I mean, they're really freaking loaded on defense in terms of money they've spent. But if you look at that offense, okay, they added Rashad Penny. He took one look at that team and retired yesterday. Deontay Johnson, who was always a second, sometimes third option in Pittsburgh. What is there for Canales and Young to work with here? Like, the more I look at that roster, the more I'm like, I don't care if Bryce Young puts on 30 pounds of muscle and gains a foot of height. Like, this team is not going anywhere next year. I have 3-14, which is significantly under their win total of 5. I don't see a meaningful improvement at all here. 3-14. What about you, Joey?
Yeah, the team that sure took it to me last year. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible, in my opinion. We'll be battling it for the first pick with probably a couple teams here, but I think 3-14 might even be generous. I think they're just terrible. I don't want to say 1-16 because just like you bounce a kick in or two, but I'm gonna go 2-15.
Wow.
I think they're terrible. Maybe it might be a little bit of I'm pissed.
And I wanted to be like, hey, Canales took a bad Tampa Bay team that was, people thought were going to go 5-12.
They might be old, but Mike Evans can still play. I mean,
there's no turning this thing around.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
And like a big part of that too is not. I mean, Canal is. I don't know what he's going to do. Who knows? I'm not going to bury the guy before he coaches a game. But like Bryce Young was awful, just awful. He looked like
so bad he got his coach fired 12 games in.
I just like there was nothing. Like I mean, even like even like on a good play, you're just like, why does this guy look so small?
All right,
Like,
let's just, while we have some time here, let's just go through it. Here's the offense for Carolina. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver 1. Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver 2. Adam Thielen, 107-year-old Adam Thielen. Love the guy, but a little too old. I think his yards per catch was like 1 last year. He's the third string. After that, you got Marshall, Leggett. Offensive line is a bunch of no-names. Tight ends, Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas. Running backs, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. How does that team not? I mean, they're going to be 32nd in offense again, maybe 31st or 30th. That team cannot score points. I don't care if you put, a very solid quarterback on that team. That team is not going anywhere. This is year zero. This is year -1 of a rebuild. They're nowhere near close.
No, I mean an all-time just F- trade. Like
that's what happened
to move up, and just awful. Because they were bad. Like, you picked. No, you didn't pick.
They do have an elite punter in Johnny Hecker, so watch out, folks.
I'll be punting a lot.
Yeah, they're going to be punting a lot.
Punter.
It's like you want to come up with some kind of analysis here, but it's like you made one of the probably 5 worst trades in NFL history 2 years ago, and you're just going to be paying for it for at least the next 2 or 3 years. I feel bad for Dave Canales because this is a job where
I don't know if was he the only guy that took this job? Like, I don't know, just kind of going their roster here. Like, did he get hired because he wanted to board the Titanic? I mean,
bad owner, bad infrastructure.
Honestly, like
bad team, bad quarterback, bad defense.
I don't even remember who they interviewed or anything. But he would mention Bobby Slowick. Does he want this to be his first? I mean, the same thing for Dave Canales. Maybe he just really wanted. Maybe he has some ties. I don't know. Does he know somebody with the Panthers? I don't know. Does he want to work for Tepper, who seems like
they brought in Frank Reich, who was the first ever quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, who lives in North Carolina, who has family and roots in North Carolina, and they were like, this is the guy to lead us to the promised land, and fired him, 100 days into his first season.
I mean, I want to say sneaky, but kind of not sneaky, or might be the worst run organization in football.
They're up there in all American sports right now with how the ownership has behaved. I mean, nobody's going to top the A's, but Carolina is right up there right now.
I don't know. Like, I know it's more emotional for like the A's for like us and people out here, but other teams have moved. Like, it sucked balls, but
the LA Angels come to mind.
This guy is like throwing beers or whatever he's doing at fans. Like, because you move your team like what Cavill's been doing. Like, okay, whatever, you board your flight to like, woohoo, we're touring the site, like, whatever. That, like, I guess that's part of the job when you get to like when the owner says, I want to do this, like you work for him, whatever. But like when the owner himself behaves like that, I just couldn't imagine what the building's like.
Oh my God, it's got to be toxic. And it shows on the field. I mean, they're by far the worst team in the NFL last year. They're, in my opinion, the Patriots are probably the only team that could compete with them for the first pick this season. The way I'm looking at everything right now, they're going to be awful, and there's just no way around it. Okay, so that's the AFC and NFC South. Let's just recap the NFC South here real quick. Joey has Tampa winning the division at 10-7, Atlanta also 10-7, New Orleans 6-11, and Carolina 2-15. I have Atlanta win the division at 11-6, Tampa at 8-9, New Orleans 6-11, and Carolina 3-14. That's your NFC South wrap up. Let's head over to Joey's Shack and the Bum of the offseason. This is a big one. I mean, there's so many choices. We haven't done a pod in almost 4 months. A lot has happened since then. Aaron Rodgers misses a few weeks of mini camp to go on a ayahuasca bender and then just takes no responsibility for it whatsoever. Typical Aaron Rodgers diva behavior. I'm putting the Falcons on here because of the Penix pick. One of the most inexplicable picks in recent NFL draft history. You and I and basically every football fan in my life were texting when that happened. Like, did that just happen? Like, Penix has to be an all-pro quarterback or that's going to go down as one of the dumbest picks in recent NFL history. I put Belichick on here, supposed greatest coach in NFL history. I know he's old. He didn't get any job offers. Like, that's pretty sad. Like, Brady won the Brady-Belichick debate. It's over. The Jaguars
Brady
are on
won
here.
this divorce. He might not have won the other one.
Yeah, he won. He won this one. Giselle took his balls, but you know, Belichick did not fare so well. Jaguars have to be on here. You and I said when the Lawrence contract dropped, oh my God, they're going to regret that. And then Rashee Rice, obviously he would be the choice if you were going to pick because he's the dumbest person of the offseason, throwing away his career. Just take an Uber, man. Like what the NFL pays for every one of their players to have an Uber account. It goes on the Shield's dime. Take a fucking Uber. Yeah. Because they're trying to stop this shit from happening and doesn't care. They're like, let's get behind the wheel of a Lamborghini and go 200 miles an hour on the freeway. But anyway, Joey's jacking the bum of the offseason. The floor is yours.
Yeah, a lot of great candidates. But yeah, I chose one that honestly, like, it's really pissing me off. Like just kind of the talk around it, because I find it so obvious what at least going on kind of should happen. But yeah, my jack and the bum of the week, the bums of the offseason, is all these GMs giving out these just pathetic extensions to these bum quarterbacks. Like, why? I don't see it, not even just in sports, but like even just in business. Why is, like, again, Trevor Lawrence, and like I really one of these times do we really should just like rank top, like, the starting quarterbacks, right? Because it's starting, like, you notice people like, oh yeah, I mean, he's top 10. I'm like, you got 13 guys in your top 5. Like,
you got 22 in your top 10.
Like, someone's got to get put down. Like, there's got to be a list, right? Like if you really do it, you can have a hard time putting Trevor Lawrence above like 17 or 18. And this dude's like, I like to reset the market. And Trent Baalke's like, okay, here it is. Tua. Like a year or two ago, we're like, is this guy going to die on the field? Can't stay healthy. Brian Flores was like, wanted to punt him to Mars. He's terrible until he's like, well, Trevor got this. I want this. And Miami's like,
sure.
Yep. Jordan Love, I get it. With him, I actually kind of get it. Like, you could see it a bit. He did win a playoff game. Like,
but it's one good season.
Right. But again, I tried to think, like, the Niners at one point made Jimmy Garoppolo the highest paid player in the NFL. Just think about that. Why?
Yeah.
Jordan Love, I kind of get it. First round pick, like he had to sit. Like, he hasn't had time to fail yet. He very much could. He had a tough start to the season. Trended up, like, you know, if that one bombs, I'm not going to criticize it. Like, I think he does have. I think they could be talking. I mean, he could be a decent MVP pick this year. I mean, if it hits, but yeah, and I just don't get it. There's no way these were, like, Mahomes is making $45 million a year. It's the best contract in sports. As far as I'm concerned, if I was him, it's like he should have like a percentage. If I'm not X percentage above like the highest paid guy, just automatically, we don't even need to negotiate. And like, if I was the Chiefs, I'd be like, all right, cool. Like, I'll write it. Like, if Mahomes walked in tomorrow and said, hey man, see what Jordan Love got? Like, you know who I am? Like, I want 58 a year. If I was Brett Veach, I'd be like, all right, man, no problem. Yeah. Like, I don't get it.
There are so many bad quarterback contracts right now that first of all, last offseason, we kind of said the same thing about Derek Carr, about Geno Smith, about Daniel Jones. Those were the 3 head scratchers last year. 2 of those did not perform. Geno Smith was actually pretty good, which is pretty shocking. This year's offseason contract.
What is he making?
That's what I'm saying. Last year, we're like
there's a gigantic difference a year between like 57 and 35.
That's what I'm saying.
To be honest, I wouldn't do either if that 57 didn't have like clearly one of like the top. Like when CJ Stroud again ascends, continues, I'll have no problem. He wants to reset the market, go right ahead. It always doesn't have to be Mahomes. Stroud want to reset it, fine. Continues his great, no problem. Even me loves Brock Purdy. You give him like $60 million a year. Whoa. Like, huh? Like, it's more of just like this just lack of confidence to be like, boy, if we lose Tua, like Mike McDaniel's like, oh, how am I gonna sleep? Like, you mean to tell me you couldn't find like somebody in like even like the $20 million again, even those guys really aren't available. But like draft a guy. I mean, again, I think fans know you might take a step back next year. But like you know where you're going with Tua. Like I can confidently say, maybe I eat my words, but like I can confidently say Miami's going absolutely nowhere with him as a starting quarterback.
No matter how good the head coach and the roster around
doesn't matter. I mean, they got a pretty damn good roster. I mean, granted, they might be a little soft when it gets like negative 10 degrees in Kansas City, but who wouldn't be soft? Like, okay, you might have to win your division, get the 1 seed, but even then, I mean, they lost to, didn't they lose to Buffalo at home last? Like, okay.
Just look around the league right now. Okay, Tua got that deal. Very unlikely to win a Super Bowl in the life of that deal with the way he is as a quarterback. Josh Allen, yes, he I guess could win a Super Bowl, but he makes more money.
People like, oh, he's like eventually it's his time. He really hasn't sniffed it.
Yeah,
like legitimately.
There's another one, and as Allen makes more money, that roster.
Same thing with Lamar.
Yeah,
like.
Burrow's paid $55 million. Deshaun Watson's contract is
people laugh at Jared Goff, right? If the Ravens had Jared Goff, I think they would have had a better chance in the play.
Now that is a hot take.
Like maybe not the whole regular season, every game, but like again, Steve Spagnuolo coached that game like I dare you to throw the ball.
And it worked. And
you can't be a 50-something million dollar quarterback and have the other team like, dude, we'd love to watch you sit there and throw the ball.
Yeah.
That can't happen.
And same thing goes with like you're saying, Tua and, a lot of these guys who are in that middling range, Trevor Lawrence, unless you're a quarterback who can conceivably win the Super Bowl with the roster you have now, or maybe with the roster you have next year, you cannot pay them top dollar. Like, yeah, I think Purdy is, again, he's the same situation. Like you cannot pay him $60 million.
Do you think it's easier? I think the question is a little bit like needs to be framed this way. Do you think it's easier to build a team to win a Super Bowl the way the Niners have? Granted, this goes out the window if they break the bank for Purdy, where you find a ton of Pro Bowlers, All Pros, pay them, almost all of them, and a quarterback that can fit in a scheme and like boop, 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 little point guard.
Yeah.
Or do you think it's easier to find the quarterback who makes the money and everything? The problem with that is I don't think you need to. The question is, can you find the quarterback, like top 5, like elite quarterback? The question is, can you find Patrick Mahomes?
That's the thing. It's like
because
you look around the league, you go at these guys who are making $50+ million. Okay, Tua can't compete with Mahomes. Allen, I mean, he hasn't yet beaten Mahomes in a playoff game. Lamar Jackson hasn't beaten Mahomes. I don't think he will. Burrow, sure, he's top 3 in the NFL.
Again, I love Joe
Stroud. He could do it. You could see it.
Burrow's
with Stroud.
Not hurt all the time. I could see again. CJ Stroud, he could do it. Oh,
Herbert, probably not.
I gotta see him
even with Harbaugh. I gotta see it. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't. Yeah, but I could.
Maybe.
Hurts?
Not. Yeah.
But that if I could just go, but we said like, oh, Philly should trade him. Oh, they'd be pretty good right now. not paying him all that money and like
Yeah.
what they would have gotten for him. Like
Yeah, that team
again,
is
and
spiraling.
I guess I'll talk about it a little bit, but like every time you turn on ESPN, Fox, whatever, they're like, "Oh my God, what is Dallas doing?" And I'm like, Dallas is doing what I'm suggesting. Like they're like, Dak, we're not giving you the money. Like we know where the ship goes, and like we're willing.
First round playoff exit. Yeah.
We think the risk of signing you to that deal is a much bigger risk than being like, "Oh my God, we got to go with Cooper Rush or whoever."
Or draft a guy. Yeah, they're like,
we'll find it. Like you were a 4th round pick, Dak. Like we think we could do it again. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But they are convinced the furthest place they're getting with him at any dollar amount is like shit your pants. Wow. Like,
and then you just go through the rest of the league of these guys that are making big money now. Goff, Love, Cousins, Stafford's making some pretty good money. I mean, you'd almost rather, like you said, have a first round or second round rookie quarterback and
that's the only thing that like is like the cure, I guess, is like you get a guy who's really good making nothing, aka right now Purdy, Stroud. Like the only guy that it has worked. Again, everyone is saying, well, the Niners haven't been like, so you can't win like that. Well, you can't win with the quarterback either, because again, there's a difference between finding. Maybe it just speaks to how great Mahomes is, but like there's a difference in finding Josh Allen or Lamar or Burrow and finding Patrick Mahomes. There is. Nobody's been able to beat him.
That Patrick Mahomes guy is not coming in the draft next year. Next year's quarterback draft class looks awful.
He may never come.
So it's like, man, that's probably what these teams are looking at.
I'm confident in saying this sounds like the loser take, but I'm confident in saying the Niners, other than like, again, Tampa did beat him in the Super Bowl. Like, I also would say the Chiefs' offensive line was they could not block. But Tampa beat them. Like, the Niners have come as close as anybody at beating them. I mean, you'd argue they've blown 2 Super Bowls.
The Niners with their perfect roster with a cheap quarterback, and then the only other 2 to beat Mahomes were Brady, the greatest of all time, and Burrow, who is probably the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in the NFL. So
I would say Burrow was right there if he just he's got an injury problem.
Yeah, for sure. So there's Joey's.
I just like I can't like the next guy that like Mahomes is going to be like the 13th highest paid quarterback. I'll be like, well, they're like, why can't we beat the Chiefs? I'm like, that's why. Like, what can you buy with $60 million a year? You can't buy with 45. You know what
Imagine
I'm saying?
Nikola Jokic was like the 37th highest paid player in the NBA. You'd be like, that's not fair. You can't do that. That's Joey's Jack in the Bum of the offseason. GM's giving out shit-ass extensions to bum-ass quarterbacks. Let's do a couple You Like That picks of the week. We've just to recap for everybody, 2022, we won 61.2% of our bets. That's pretty unsustainable. It was awesome while it happened. Last year, we went 56.6% of our bets. I mean, pretty damn good. If you're over 52.58, you're a winning better. So we did damn well last year. We're going to give you 2 futures here: Jacksonville under 9 and New Orleans under 8.5. New Orleans, I've made it clear they quit on their coach. They're getting old. That situation just has horrible vibes. And then Jacksonville, with Lawrence making the big money and a thin roster, we'll take under on both of those. Jacksonville under 9 and New Orleans under 8.5 for our first 2 futures picks for the 2024 season. Joey, let's do your feels great, baby, and then close the pod. This is your wildest take you feel best about currently. You've been, discussing this player a lot recently, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, I feel like I said, to continue what I just went on a rant about, I'm very confident in saying this is Dak's last year with Dallas. And it's like, in a weird way, like it's the right decision for Dallas. I think if I was Dak, I'd want to leave too. Just like to feel like there's so much scar tissue there with the playoffs, with the team, with, kind of what now seems like being a scapegoat for all this. I just think, I think they're a very interesting test case for what I just alluded to is like the risk of paying him if you're the, if you're Gary, the risk of paying him Because again, as he should, if he sees these other guys get like, I'm not the biggest Dak guy by no stretch of imagination, but like he should be paid more than Trevor Lawrence. Like should be paid more than Tua, probably. I even think you could say he should be paid more than Jordan Love. I don't know if the upside is there as much with him, but if I was him and his agent, I'm like, let's start the number starts with a 6.
Yeah.
Like, and if I'm Dallas, I'm like, the number is going to start with some pink slip and you're going to go hit the free agents. I wouldn't do it. And if I was him, I wouldn't want to sign for $51 million a year. Like when, some other dumb team is going to be like, oh man, Dak. And I don't mean that like Dak's just terrible. I just mean like just throw money at a problem. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We have no quarterback. We're going to throw money at a guy who is not, probably the age you probably desire, who's probably not like,
he's not going to win you multiple playoff games in a season. It's just
like,
not going to happen.
What do you when you get Dak Prescott? Because you can't say he's not had a really good team. I mean, you heard Jerry to his press. He's like, how many Pro Bowlers we have? Like, they had a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the likelihood he goes to a team as good is like 0 because that team is going to have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do the Giants somehow cut Daniel Jones and they're like, oh yeah, we'll steal your quarterback? And like
Pittsburgh,
would you go to the Giants? Like,
yeah,
was Pittsburgh gonna do it again? Like just Band-Aid on the problem?
Yeah.
Like the one
New
team
Orleans.
that I actually think makes sense would be the Raiders.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I could see them doing it. Like tickets, the building, Vegas, everything.
Yeah.
But like again, I
don't know if you've been following the NFL Top 100, but they released 20
through
through 11
I
tonight.
saw it.
Unbelievable. So Dak was ranked 16th in the NFL, ahead of Justin Jefferson.
I'm sorry. I saw it come out. I was like, I just still couldn't believe Jalen Hurts was that high.
Hurts was 15, which also we disagree with, but Dak was 16, ahead of Justin Jefferson, Micah Parsons, Joe Burrow, Joey Bosa, among others.
It's just the complete over-evaluation of the quarterback and specifically average to good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's just like –
and also that Cowboys boost. He's always been kind of propped up. I
don't know. I just like – they did go, I think, last year. Was it last year? The year like 4-1 with Cooper Rush?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying he's better than Dak, but I'm like this idea. This idea that just like the bottom falls out on like every player. Like even I'm not going to say Patrick Mahomes is replaceable, but like when he was out, that was a playoff game. Like he got hurt in the chat. Like Chad Hennington, like make the play. Like you can coach guys. Like there's not like obviously the Chiefs are like, wow, we are so screwed. Yes, you are if he goes down, but like
Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. You're like,
I mean, Mahomes wasn't like even Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is like, oh my god, this guy is like the prototype. Largely just a bum in his career right now. I mean, I don't know.
Side note, we are really, really putting ourselves out there. If Trevor Lawrence goes like 12-5 this year and finishes like second in the MVP voting, we lose all credibility. But we're willing to die on that hill.
I feel confident. I'd be like, where's the chips?
Yeah, shove them all.
I
get it, man. And I think
because like I think you. I mean, I know you're like we nerd out over this like money, the cap stuff, all this stuff, and it's just like so easy to me. Like I don't know, maybe it's because I'm not a coach. I'm not like my job's not on the line. If like I am the guy that like say Philly like last year or at his peak traded Jalen Hurts for like they would have got at least 2 ones. Is anyone sending a 1-1 for him right now?
Yeah, after the Super Bowl last year, say they traded Hurts and then picked C.J. Stroud, you'd be like, oh, genius move.
It would be that would have been the biggest, like that would have been the best trade I've ever seen in my life.
But no, now they got to pay him $55 million for another 3 years to mostly run it and tush push it. Same with Dak. It's like I think Jerry Jones. I mean, he's old and senile now. It's really his kid running the team. But they're like, this is the line in the sand. We're not going to do 4 years, $250 million for Dak frickin' Prescott. Like, I'm sorry. And I think you're right. And a lot of the time I don't agree with you on your wild take. This one, I mean, it's the right move for Dallas, and like you're saying, it's probably the right move for Dak to play somewhere else and be out of this situation. Yeah, he's only 30. Like, he's got 7-8 years left. Many
of these teams, these contracts, like, this isn't fantasy football. Like, would a lot of teams want or pay Jared Goff the money? That money, maybe not. But like for the Detroit Lions, it's clearly worked.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
maybe go find your team. Yeah,
maybe Dak making 60 on the Raiders is like could be the best thing that ever happened to him.
I mean, I'm gonna write that down for next year. Maybe after the season, I'll bet on Dak signing with the Raiders because that just seems like such a good fit overall.
There's only too many teams that could afford it, have the opening,
and have a roster that's not just a complete tire fire. Like Carolina's like, we'll bring you over, Dak, and he's like, no, I'm good. All right, let's close the pod real quick. We've run over an hour here. We got to do some quick Vikings and Niners takes before we wrap up the pod and move on to the NFC and AFC East next week. I just want to bring up a couple things. I was ready coming into this pod to be effusive in my praise of the Vikings offseason, and all reports out of camp and the videos I've watched, JJ McCarthy has looked really good. The offense has looked really good. The more I look at what Brian Flores did last year and taking the 31st ranked defense in the NFL and bringing them into the top half, I think he's an excellent coach on the defensive side of the ball. I think Kevin O'Connell's an excellent coach on the offensive side of the ball. And I've seen enough from, McCarthy to this point to be like, we could go 10-7 or 11-6 and win this division. And then our quarterback situation reared its ugly head, and now I'm back to like maybe 7-10 is more realistic for this year. Just an unbelievable situation where you have our 4th-round rookie who was going to be our 4th cornerback, maybe our starting 3rd nickel cornerback, Kyrie Jackson, died in a car accident, which was, absolutely tragic. A lot of the Vikings went to the funeral. Kevin O'Connell spoke at his funeral. That really kind of crushed the team over the offseason. And then Mekhi Blackman, who was going to be either our 3rd or our 2nd cornerback, tore his ACL on supposedly the first snap of training camp. So you had one cornerback pass away tragically, and then a few weeks later, your other, nickel cornerback blow out his ACL on the first snap of training camp. So that just killed the mood right there. And then Shaquille Griffin, who we signed, who I think was going to be our starting left side cornerback opposite Byron Murphy, he was injured. It looks like he's not going to play in the preseason. They don't know if he's going to be ready to start the regular season. And then that leaves Byron Murphy as the only healthy cornerback on the roster that was expected to play meaningful snaps this year. And he is in trouble with the law and is blaming it on an extortion attempt, but there's all sorts of stories going around with that. So he may not be available for at least part of the season. So we've signed all these guys off the street in the last few weeks. Duke Shelley, who Vikings fans like, but he's at best the number 3 cornerback. We signed some old heads that have been around the league for 10 plus years that were available. All of a sudden our secondary looks like an absolute tire fire. The cornerback position is just completely decimated. There's a scenario where we open the season with cornerbacks 5, 6, and 7 as our starters. So any hope I had of this team kind of being a surprise because of the core, because of the coaching, because of me thinking, hey, maybe McCarthy is actually going to be end up being a really good pick, kind of went out the door now knowing that we're going to have a horrible pass defense. So that's where the Vikings are at right now. Cornerback Achilles heel. Would love to see them maybe try to make a trade before the season starts to get us excited again, to pick up maybe like a decent cornerback or sign somebody who's still available. I guess Xavier Howard's still available. Something like that would probably get the fans excited, but that really hurts. Joey, give us your Niners takes real quick before we close the pod.
There's not enough money to go around for everybody. That's pretty much all luckily, no major injuries, no real injuries at all that I've heard of. But yeah, Brandon Ayuk not being there was kind of expected. Trent Williams, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
He saw Darrisaw's contract and was like, I want that.
Yeah. Like all of a sudden, Brandon Ayuk, they're like, okay, buddy, sorry. Hold on. Yeah, I just, this feels like the last dance with this group. It's not going to get blown up, but someone's got to go. I mean, if they really are going to extend Purdy, so we'll see. I don't know, just what I.
So when you say there's too much money for too many guys, so you go down the list of Niners All-Pro caliber players. Bosa ain't leaving, you would imagine, right? Warner probably not leaving.
The two that I think would be the most. I mean, one of them is just one of the receivers has got to go.
Yeah, Debo or Ayuk, one of the two.
I just really I have a hard time with the team getting rid of Debo Samuel. Even though he's older and probably the less, I don't want to say talented, but like he's not the true number one Randy Moss receiver type, but he's like a number one, whatever you want to say, weapon, playmaker, dog, boombox
setter.
guy.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you kind of see it a little bit with receivers, but like, I mean, he was voted a captain. I just, that one I don't see, but then again, I just like Brandon Ayuk is still really good. He's really good. He's younger. He is more of the classic downfield threat.
Mm-hmm.
The guy I think Kittle might be the guy. I think they might try and go tight end, and even though he's still playing at a high level, he is probably prone to more injury. He's also the older one out of all those. And then the other guy, I mean, I hate to say it, it'd be a humongous problem, but Trent Williams, he's just the age.
Yeah.
You maybe do
McCaffrey's not going anywhere.
No. I would say Kyle Juszczyk, but Kyle loves him, and they already did just negotiate a restructure to like give him a pay cut. So like, I mean, are they going to make him take even less next year? They might lose Charvarius Ward. He needs a deal after this. Hufanga needs a deal, which again, I'm fine not paying him. I mean, I really like him, but you can't pay everybody. Dre Greenlaw's gonna need one.
Yeah.
Like
the core is going to change massively in 2025.
I think it's just going to get younger. I mean, I just think it's going to get, and yeah. But
yeah,
hey,
I feel like that's been kind of the talk around the Niners the whole offseason. You would imagine the Williams situation gets handled, right? But the Ayuk one, you don't know.
Oh, if it's a fireball, I'm fired. Williams doesn't get it. I mean, I don't
They probably just adjust his deal a little bit and he'll be there. It's the Ayuk one that I don't think there's any way he doesn't play week 1. I think he's going to be there. It's just he'll probably be gone after this season, you'd imagine.
Yeah, I don't want to take it for granted, but like, yeah, I would expect the Niners to eventually just give Trent what he wants. And I think Brandon Ayuk for being a student, he has nothing. He has no leverage.
Yeah.
He has nothing to stand on with his contract. Hate to say it.
If you've been watching receivers, that the whole episode about Justin Jefferson, I think it was episode 2, mostly focused on him. And there was a lot of talk in there about how, he really wants that contract. They got really close after his 3rd season, but as the season started, they said, nope, we didn't reach an agreement. We're going to have to wait till after the season. And then they show he gets injured. And he immediately starts talking about, like, I'm not just going to sit out the season to protect myself. Like, I love football. I want to win, whatever. And Jamie looks to me and goes, so what happened? Did they give him the contract? I'm like, yeah, they gave him $50 million a year, like, or whatever, $35 million a year. Like, when you're that good, you're going to get paid by your team. And Trent Williams is at that level. George Kittle for years has been at that level. Bosa has been at that level. McCaffrey's been at that level. Is Ayuk at that level? I don't think so. I think he's one rung below. And
yeah, the thing is,
it's like Buckner. It's like, somebody's got to go.
It's just interesting because Buckner, it's like they knew it, they planned it, traded him.
Mm-hmm.
This one, the way they're acting like is like the only one it could potentially really resemble is Bosa, and one is a lot more important than the other in terms of position, and then also just, I mean, the Niners have no one after him. You know, they signed Leonard Floyd, but like I drafted a receiver in the first round. Like, does that tell like they're
Ayuk goes down or gets traded? Pearsall
like,
just moves up a rung on the depth chart. If Bosa gets hurt, you're toast. Like,
which is interesting because he had a decent year, but like he wasn't
his normal
so
self.
I'm interested to see like a full camp, full everything, like not having to worry about the money. Like hopefully he's back to defense player of the year play, but because he's been paid like it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We're gonna probably just do an update at the end of every episode as we get towards week 1, just on our teams. But Vikings injury situation at corner is kind of the number one story for us in training camp, and then the Niners, obviously the Ayuk and Williams situations. But all in all, it's a very upward trend for the Niners. It looks like they're going to be somewhere in their 11 to 12 win range as long as there's no significant injuries. And then the Vikings, this is year 1 of a rebuild. So as we build towards opening day in the NFL, we'll continue to update on our teams, but we want to give you those breakdowns of each of the divisions first and make sure that listeners of our podcast who aren't as obsessed with the Vikings and Niners as us get their NFL news from two guys who didn't play football past age 14. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week to preview the AFC and NFC East. Like I said, every week from here until the start of the season, we'll preview 2 divisions a week. We'll do 1/5 podcast the week before the season starts with a couple special guests where we'll preview everything for the NFL this season, make all of our predictions, and then back to our weekly pods every Monday, recapping how the Vikings and Niners did, all the biggest stories around the NFL. It's always fun hanging out with you guys. We can't wait for football season to start. Thanks again for listening to the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast, and we will see you next week.